The first thing I noticed was the trail of muddy water leading across my porch. The second thing I noticed was the woman standing at my front door, drenched from head to toe, smiling as if being caught in the middle of a storm was somehow the funniest thing in the world. And the third thing I noticed was that despite the bright afternoon sunlight breaking through the clouds behind her, there was something deeply broken hiding behind her laughter. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes in kindness, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts if you believe that sometimes a single act of compassion can give someone a second chance at life. I had lived alone for almost 4 years by then. My small house sat at the end of a quiet street lined with maple trees whose leaves danced in the summer breeze. It was a peaceful neighborhood where nothing unexpected ever happened. Most days followed the same pattern. I woke up at 6, watered the flowers my late mother had planted years ago, worked remotely from my home office, prepared simple meals, and spent evenings reading old novels. At 42, my life had become predictable. Some people called it stability. Others might have called it loneliness. I preferred not to call it anything at all. After my wife, Marissa, passed away from cancer 3 years earlier, I stopped expecting surprises from life. Grief had a strange way of shrinking the world around you. Friends visited less often. Invitations disappeared. Conversations became shorter. People wanted to help at first. Then they wanted you to heal. Eventually they wanted you to move on. But grief wasn't a destination. It was an address. And I had been living there for years. That afternoon had begun like any other. The weather forecast promised sunshine, but by noon dark clouds rolled in unexpectedly. A heavy rainstorm arrived with strong winds that bent tree branches and flooded the streets within minutes. I was making coffee when someone knocked at my door. At first I ignored it. Delivery drivers usually left packages without waiting. But then there was another knock. Gentler this time. Almost hesitant. When I opened the door, I found her standing there. She looked to be somewhere in her early 30s. Her dark auburn hair clung to her face. Water dripped from the sleeves of an oversized gray sweater. Her jeans were soaked. One sneaker lace was untied. And yet she laughed. Not loudly. Not nervously. Just softly, as though she couldn't believe the situation she had found herself in. "I know this sounds crazy," she said, brushing wet hair from her forehead. "But could I use your bathroom? I promise I'm not a criminal. I'm just having the worst day imaginable." Something about her expression made me pause. People who are dangerous usually try too hard to appear harmless. She looked genuinely embarrassed. And exhausted. Like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. I hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. She thanked me 3 times while entering. I pointed toward the hallway bathroom and offered her a towel. She disappeared inside. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. I began wondering if she had become ill. I knocked gently. She answered immediately. Her voice sounded steadier now. When she emerged, her eyes were red. She had clearly been crying. She folded the towel neatly and handed it back. Then she apologized for taking so long. She explained that she had needed a few minutes to collect herself. I told her she didn't owe me an explanation. But she surprised me by sitting down at my kitchen table and saying she wanted to explain anyway. Her name was Soraya Whitcomb. She had been driving across town when her car broke down. Normally that wouldn't have been a disaster. But earlier that morning she had lost her job. Not only that, she had recently finalized a divorce after discovering her husband had been living a double life for nearly 2 years. Her savings were almost gone. She was staying at a motel while trying to find affordable housing. And to make matters worse, her father had stopped speaking to her after blaming her for the divorce. She laughed again. That same strange laugh. The laugh people make when life becomes so painful that tears alone don't feel sufficient anymore. She said she felt ridiculous standing in a stranger's house telling him her problems. I admitted I hadn't spoken to anyone for more than 10 minutes in nearly a week. For the first time in years, conversation flowed naturally. She noticed framed photographs on the shelf. Pictures of my wife. She asked about her. No one had asked me about Marissa in a very long time. Most people avoided mentioning the dead. As if speaking their names might reopen old wounds. But wounds never really close when they're ignored. So I talked. I told Soraya about meeting Marissa in college. About our road trips. About the way she sang terribly while cooking dinner. About hospital rooms and final goodbyes. And while speaking, I realized something shocking. For the first time since losing my wife, remembering her didn't hurt as much. It felt warm. Bittersweet. Human. Soraya listened quietly. Not interrupting. Not offering empty sympathy. Just listening. When she finally stood up to leave, the rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled across the driveway. She thanked me again. Then she hesitated. She confessed she didn't have enough money for a taxi. Her motel was 6 miles away. I offered to drive her. She refused twice. Accepted the third time. During the drive she stared out the window. She spoke about feeling invisible. About how quickly people disappear when you no longer have something to offer. Friends stopped calling. Family members judged her. Employers rejected applications. She said she had spent weeks pretending she was fine because admitting she was struggling felt like failure. I understood. Grief teaches people to become actors. You smile. You nod. You say you're okay. Until eventually no one remembers you were hurting at all. When we arrived at the motel, I expected that would be the end of our story. But before getting out of the car, she asked if she could repay my kindness someday. I smiled and told her kindness wasn't a loan. It didn't require repayment. She looked at me for several seconds. Then she said maybe that was exactly what the world needed more of. People helping each other without expecting anything back. Days passed. Then one afternoon there was another knock at my door. Soraya stood outside carrying a small potted sunflower. She said she couldn't repay kindness. But she could at least bring a plant. I laughed. She laughed too. And somehow that little sunflower became the beginning of an unexpected friendship. She started visiting once or twice a week. Sometimes we drank coffee. Sometimes we sat quietly in the garden. Other times she helped me reorganize old boxes I had avoided touching since Marissa died. Inside those boxes were memories. Birthday cards. Movie tickets. Letters. Photographs. Objects I had hidden because they reminded me of loss. Soraya encouraged me to keep what mattered. Donate what didn't. And forgive myself for surviving. Months passed. She found work at a local bookstore. The owner appreciated her honesty and determination. She rented a tiny apartment. Nothing luxurious. But it was hers. Slowly, she transformed. The woman who had arrived drenched in rain began smiling for real. Her laughter sounded lighter. More genuine. Meanwhile, I changed too. I started jogging again. Attending community events. Answering phone calls from old friends. I even painted the living room, something I had postponed for years because Marissa had chosen the original color. One evening Soraya asked me why I helped her that day. There were countless reasons not to. She was a stranger. She looked desperate. People warn us constantly about trusting unknown visitors. I thought about the question carefully. Then I realized the answer was simple. Because someone once helped me. Years ago, when Marissa was undergoing chemotherapy, I broke down crying in a grocery store parking lot. An elderly woman approached me. She didn't know me. She simply sat beside me for 20 minutes while I cried. Before leaving, she said something I never forgot. She said people survive because strangers occasionally decide not to remain strangers. I had carried those words for years. Without realizing it, I had finally passed them on. Winter arrived. Then spring. Nearly a year after that rainy afternoon, Soraya invited me to attend an event at the bookstore. She was leading a support group for people rebuilding their lives after loss. Widows. Divorcees. People recovering from addiction. Young adults estranged from families. Everyone had a story. Everyone carried invisible scars. During her speech, she shared an experience about knocking on a stranger's door while soaking wet and feeling like her life was ending. She spoke about how one simple gesture changed everything. Then she looked directly at me. Tears filled her eyes. She said kindness didn't solve all her problems. It didn't repair her marriage. It didn't return her lost years. But it reminded her she still mattered. And sometimes that's enough to save someone. Enough to help them keep going for one more day. One more week. One more year. After the event ended, several people approached me. They thanked me. Not because I had done something extraordinary. But because I had done something ordinary. I opened a door. Offered a towel. Shared a conversation. That was all. And yet sometimes ordinary moments become turning points in someone's entire life. A few weeks later, Soraya introduced me to her father. He had reached out after months of silence. He apologized. She forgave him. They were rebuilding their relationship slowly. Carefully. But they were trying. Watching them embrace felt like witnessing sunlight returning after a long winter. As for me, I finally visited Marissa's grave without feeling crushed by guilt. I sat there for an hour. I told her everything. About the sunflower. About the bookstore. About a woman who laughed while standing drenched on my porch. And for the first time, I didn't ask why she had been taken away. I simply thanked her. Because loving her had taught me how to love people even after loss. And maybe that was the greatest gift she left behind. Life rarely announces the moments that will change us forever. Sometimes they arrive disguised as inconvenience. As interruption. As someone knocking unexpectedly at your door on an ordinary afternoon. You think you're helping another person. Only to discover they were helping you all along. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts because your support allows stories like these to reach people who may be silently struggling. Special request * comment below with the words, "Kindness opens doors," if you believe one small act of compassion can change someone's entire life. Even now, whenever storms pass through our neighborhood, I sometimes glance toward my front porch and remember that muddy trail of water. I remember the nervous smile. The soaked sweater. The quiet laughter hiding enormous pain. And I remember something even more important. We spend so much time waiting for miracles that we forget we are capable of becoming one for somebody else. Not through grand gestures. Not through wealth. Not through perfect words. But through presence. Through listening. Through offering shelter when someone has nowhere else to go. Because somewhere, right now, another person is standing in the rain. Trying not to fall apart. Wondering if anyone will answer when they knock. And perhaps all they need is someone willing to open the door.